Good morning. So this morning, I'm joined by Stephi Brett-Lee. Steffi, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. We've got some super questions to go through, but just by way of context, I'll make a very brief intro for people who are listening, and then we'll kind of dive in. So, you're a superb consumer-facing marketer. So your most recent role was with Asda as marketing director. You had a huge team, about 80 people or so, I think, in the team at Asda. A holistic marketing director, so you've done that kind of end-to-end marcoms piece. You've done previous roles with government and in your earlier career with Sainsbury's. So I'm excited to follow your career from here. I know that the ultimate goal is a CMO, which I absolutely know you will achieve in the next few years. But what would be great stuff, if you don't mind, is can we dive in so we can understand a bit about your background and how you got where you are today?
Yes, of course. I started my career on a marketing and comms kind of grad scheme with Sainsbury's, which was an amazing place to learn the ropes of marketing. Retail is a fantastically innovative, competitive, fast-paced environment. And so to kind of start there was a great experience. I then moved to financial services, which was a bit of a switch up, but I got to cover international, and I looked after EMEA and Asia Pacific in kind of the comms and community space, which was fascinating and a completely different beast to that of a UK supermarket and retailer. As you say, I worked in government, and again, another fascinating role. It was amazing to get to be in comms at the centre of government. I worked under multiple different secretaries of state through the Brexit vote, a change in prime minister. I led internal comms and stakeholder engagement as a deputy director there, and it was truly a fascinating time to be in the centre of government. And then, as you say, I moved to Asda, starting off as a corporate comms and ESG director, and then moving into that more holistic marketing director role. We did some fantastic, impactful, exciting work. And so I've been really lucky to have lots of different interesting roles, different sectors, different size teams, international, UK. So yeah, that's kind of where I am right now.
Oh, okay, fantastic. So a good kind of whistle stop tour of your kind of career to date. So you've got that comms background in your earlier career, and then the broader marketing role now. And I know that the plan going forward is to continue with that breadth. So
Yeah.
you spoke about the marcom side, and I know that creating these compelling marketing communications campaigns is something that you're very, very experienced at. How do organizations approach doing those comms campaigns through a period of change? Because there's a lot of change going on at the moment within the economy, within companies. How do you go about approaching it in that situation?
I think the first and most important thing is that it all starts with the customer. You really have to understand who your customer is, what are their challenges, what are their daily needs. You have to use data and insight to really get to know them. You have to also understand yourself and identify and specify your kind of market position. And then it's that real mix of art and science and how you kind of bring the two together. You have to give messages that are interesting enough and noticeable enough for people to spot them, something that they care about, that you can kind of emotionally connect with your audience on, and then memorable enough that they are going to follow your call to action or follow your purchase pattern when they're ready and in the market to do so. So that's really critical. At Asda, we worked with some really great agency partners, both in the creative and the media space. And I think being able to excite them with really interesting briefs, being brave enough to say yes to their kind of bold ideas. A lot of my job as marketing director was to help move things out of the way so that other people could do their best jobs. My team, my agency partners, selling things into the board to lots of non-marketeers. That's a huge part of the job. And to create these really compelling, exciting campaigns, you have to be able to pitch and excite other people about why this is going to be brilliant, because everyone has an opinion on marketing. That's something that I struggled with probably early on, but whether that's your mother, your neighbor, the person at the checkout, the team in property, everyone has an opinion. And so you have to be able to sell it and back it be the person to take the heat when things go wrong, but also be the person to share the love when things go well. And there is a lot of change. So you've got to keep people up to date with what's going on. Clearly, a large part of that is following kind of media trends and understanding how consumers are consuming media and what their interests are, and all of that kind of thing. And that's really critical to stay up to date as well.
It's a really fascinating insight, and you're right. Everybody has an opinion on marketing, and I like the way you describe the fact that you see your role as enabling, enabling these amazing pieces of communications to happen, and it's that stakeholder engagement, and I know you're very, very strong at that. You mentioned there about your kind of your style, and how do you any sort of tips as to how you lead your team through those changes?
I think one of the skills that I try and kind of encourage within my team, and that I look for actually when I'm interviewing, is curiosity. I think that being a curious marketeer is critical. If you are doing the same thing you've always done and not really asking why, then that's the death trap for a marketeer. And I think that if you find someone who's always asking why, if you encourage people to be looking up and out and not kind of down and only at their team and their work and their project, and actually looking out at different industries, different markets, I think that is really, really important. And I think that's a way to help people get through change, because you are constantly evolving, always looking up and out, having these kind of ideas and inspiration from different areas. And that's definitely something that I am looking for within teams, helping to support my teams with, encouraging as much as possible. It's a real value that I hold strongly.
Any practical things that you sort of put in place to enable that? Because I mean, that sounds absolutely fantastic. That's clearly the sort of holy grail for managing through these situations. I know a lot of people listening would go, that sounds fantastic, but I find myself kind of wound up with the day to day, and everyone's just so busy that we don't sort of look up and look out.
Yeah.
Do you manage things in a certain way to kind of actually enable that on a practical level?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we introduced in my team, in our broad brand comms kind of team marketing meetings, were different members of the team, junior members of the team, coming with their kind of meerkat moments. So where they've looked up and out, nothing to do with Asda, nothing to do with what they've been working on, just something interesting that they've seen, how they might be able to translate that into something that they could do differently, or how they might work. It could be absolutely anything. It doesn't have to even be a piece of marketing. It could be a new product, something from another area. And that's something every week that you would have. And it would mean that people would lift up, not just be talking about our performance, trade, et cetera, but something completely different and out there. So that's something that we do regularly. But also when you have those moments to get together kind of on a more every 6 months basis, when you get out of the office and when you move out of the way, really making sure that you bring in people with external opinions, interesting different points of view, that's really critical as well.
I love that, the meerkat moment. I think that's and it's creating that environment, isn't it? It's so important every 6 months or so to sort of literally physically step away, do the offsite, give everyone that clear headspace, to kind of share these ideas and be creative and have a it sounds like you create a sort of a safe space for which people can genuinely share ideas. And how good for you. I'd like to kind of change with the questions now, sort of looking forward in terms of having these conversations with senior leaders all the time. I'm always curious, what do you think might be some of the priorities for senior leaders over the next 12 months or so?
Lots of things, whether that is getting up to speed and with new things like AI, whether that's creating more impactful work. I think there's a huge push on things like effectiveness, and I think that's really important. But I think the number one priority, definitely for me as a senior leader over the next few years, and I think for others, should be building high performing teams. I think we need to increase resilience in our teams. We need to create the leaders of tomorrow, and we should be aiming to create leaders who are better than those who went before us, who are more authentic, who are able to get results and do it in the right way at the same time. And I think that creating those leaders of tomorrow is a critical and important job that sometimes we don't spend enough time focusing on because we're so busy doing the doing. So I think building that high performing team, creating those future leaders, I think that is a really important job.
Oh, I agree. I like that answer very much. The reason we started doing these Q&As was if you think about community of head, director and chief of marketing and digital marketing experts, lots of people at that sort of head of level who aspire to be director or chief of, and things have changed. We're not in the office as much as we used to be. Working patterns have changed, and people are looking to have access to how did you get where you are? What did you learn along the way? What advice would you share that you think would be of value to people who are aspiring to be a director or a chief of in the fullness of time? And you will have learned so much throughout your career today. What advice would you share for people looking at you thinking, how do I get to where Stephi is?
Yeah, I think that, kind of as we've talked about already, one of the most important things is that a marketing director role or kind of director role in that space, it's all about leadership. And actually, the more senior you get, the less you do the really fun things that you used to love as a marketeer, whether that was kind of planning out the magazine, whether that's going on shoots, all of the things that you once loved about marketing, you don't do as much of when you become, more senior. And actually, it's all about helping get out of the way and encouraging other people to do those things. So I think leading and inspiring your teams, your agencies, you're going to spend a lot of time talking about the work that your teams are doing. Pitching, influencing is a huge one. So I think my piece of advice would be, as you're kind of climbing the ladder, get as much breadth of experience as possible in both the art and the science side of marketing. Don't just focus on one or the other. So get a broad mix of all of the different disciplines, move around, do as much as possible, but also really focus on how to develop your leadership skills. See those people that you look up to and you think they're really great leaders. What do they do? And how can you kind of mirror the things that you see that they do that are brilliant? And how can you develop that leadership quality, that influencing skill? Because those are the skills that marketing directors really need. They need to be able to influence, inspire, bring teams on the journey. And I think you shouldn't be a specialist in all the different areas without honing that really important skill as well. How to have difficult conversations, how to cheer on progress in your teams and inspire and encourage. I think you have to be able to do both of those different elements. So it is a people leadership role, and that is a skill that you have to learn in the same way that you learn about data and insights. So that's really important.
Excellent. Good advice, good guidance there. Thank you. I talk a lot about sort of positive mindset and having good, healthy habits for your head and your body. Are there any? You're an extremely sort of positive, driven character, but do you have any daily habits or rituals or any tips or advice with regards to positive mindset that you could share?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think exercise is really important for positivity and keeping a well mind. And I have some classes that I love to go to a couple of times a week. That's really important. I mean, I think as a leader, you have to remember that you cast a shadow and that your mood and how you show up in the office or on Zoom calls or whatever really magnifies around your team and kind of sets the tone for how people will feel. So bringing a positive mindset is really important. I heard once some really good advice, which is if you are going into a difficult week or you've got a hard board meeting ahead of you or something that you're not looking forward to that's really tricky, planning something nice outside of work, just having something in the diary that you know you're going to do, whether it's a date night with your partner or a meal with your friends, or just even sitting on the sofa and knowing you're going to catch up on your favorite TV program. Planning in something nice when you've got those tricky or kind of less fun things coming up can help to keep you kind of positive. I mean, focusing on the good really helps me, on the little wins. At Sainsbury's, we used to talk about cheering on progress, not just celebrating success. So as you're on the way, all those positive things, not just waiting for the end result and kind of celebrating afterwards. So I definitely try to bring my best self to work. I try to have fun at work. That's one of my values, actually. We spend a lot of time at work and with the people, our colleagues and our teams. We spend a lot of time with them, more than we do with our friends kind of in our personal life. So having fun, surrounding yourself with good people, having positive conversations, exercise for me is important. Those are the kind of things that I like to do to keep that positive mindset and make sure that you're bringing that for everyone else and lifting other people up as well.
Great guidance. And the bit that really that I think was really interesting when you say, as a leader, you cast a shadow on the rest of your team, so it's so important that you turn up as your best self in a positive light.
It doesn't mean that you can't be authentic and share when things are not going so well, because that, you absolutely can, and there will be times for that, but you have to remember, how much to share, where's kind of the line, how you bring it back to how you can inspire and be positive, even if you're feeling nervous or worried or stressed. How you don't let that seep into the team is really important.
Right, Steph, you've given some brilliant answers there. Thank you ever so much for your time, and I look forward to following your career over the next 2 years.
Thanks so much.